All right, looks like it is 6:30.
Sorry.
All right, welcome to,
It's me. Hang on.
and welcome to the Planning Commission. Good?
No. Volume zero.
Make sure your mic is muted, Mike.
It is. It is. Hang on.
That was a funny thing to say.
There we go. Now we're good.
All right, well, welcome to the July 23rd, 2025 Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Commission meeting. We will first take up our general business. We will first turn to Becky Pepper to explain the online and in-person rules to us.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distraction during the meeting. When the Chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raise hand function to indicate that they wish to speak during public comment. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn your camera on to provide your comments. Please state your name before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The primary format to access and participate in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel.
Thank you, Becky. And before we start, I would like to welcome our newest commissioner. Commissioner Wilson is here with us tonight, so thank you. We'll move into general business items. Are there any, Jeff?
None this evening.
All right. Committee reports. Is anyone here from the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board that could provide us a report?
No, I was not able to attend that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Communications, Jeff, is there any written communications from the public?
All communications received by the deadline were included as part of your packet.
And have we received any communications from staff, planning commissioners, or other commissioners?
None this evening.
Have we received any written action from the city engineer?
Also none this evening.
All right. At this time, I will turn back to the commission. Is there any disclosure of ex parte communications this evening?
Nope.
That would be regarding any of the items on the agenda this evening. Are there any declarations of abstentions on any items on the agenda this evening?
Nope.
All right. At this time, then, we will open it up for general public comment. That is public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone here in the room or online to give general public comment this evening?
No, not seeing anyone.
All right, thank you. And with that, then we will turn to our regular agenda. The first item up, I believe, is Becky Pepper.
Thank you very much. I have just a brief overview, and so I'm going to just remain here. So this item is before you this evening because of a state statute that requires that the Planning Commission review the CIP for its compliance with the comprehensive plan. This is an annual review, and it includes projects that should be constructed or started during the next 5 fiscal years ending in the year 2030. The CIP is a tool that helps guide city investment in the construction of public facilities and utilities. Capital projects are defined as having a minimum estimated cost of $100,000 and a life expectancy of at least 2 years. Examples of a capital improvement project can include an expansion of a public building, new city infrastructure, acquisition of land for public uses, planning and engineering costs, and street and sidewalk construction and maintenance. As part of the CIP process, the projects on the list are reviewed by a CIP committee that is comprised of city staff. That committee reviews the projects on a number of criteria. One of them includes conformance with our long-range plans, including the comprehensive plan, Plan 2040. Your role tonight is not to recommend certain projects or funding amounts, but to review the projects on the capital improvements plan for its conformance with the goals and policies of Plan 2040. So as mentioned, as part of this evaluation, staff has reviewed and found that all projects were in conformance with Plan 2040. So given that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission make a finding that the projects presented in the 2026 through 2030 capital improvement plan are in conformance with the city's comprehensive plan and recommend to the City Commission for approval.
Thank you, Becky.
Oh, and I should also add that we do have Mary Bisbee here who can help answer. She's our budget analyst. She can help answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. At this time, is there any public comment on this item here in the room or online?
Not seeing anyone online.
Don't see anyone, so we will move then to the commission discussion on item number 1. Anyone have questions or like to get the discussion
I have a
started?
question. When we find the proposed projects in compliance with our comprehensive plan, that does not mean that we have approved these projects as being part of the comprehensive plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just making sure that they're in conformance with the spirit of Plan 2040. So you're not approving them into the plan, you're not approving them as something to be constructed, you're just finding that the general spirit of them is in coherence with the plan.
Thank you.
I didn't see anything that I thought was out of line. I agreed with the city staff.
Anyone? Commissioner Barroto? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Let me see if I can put it up. I will try to read it here. See if I can find it. Is it the, okay, the action requested. All right. So, can I, Jeff, tell me if I'm reading this correctly. The commission has reviewed the projects proposed for inclusion in the City of Lawrence 2026-2030 capital improvement plan for conformance with the city's comprehensive plan, and we are forwarding a recommendation to the City Commission for approval.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2. That will be Luke Mortensen.
Almost there, once.
Take your time.
Green one at the bottom.
Yep, I'm getting there. Okay. All right, now we're good. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Luke Mortensen. I'm a planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. As Chair Hayden just noted, the second public hearing item tonight is a request to consider the Riverfront Addition preliminary plat. As a brief reminder, 2 months ago at the May 28th Planning Commission meeting, the Commission voted to defer this item for 60 days with a charge to receive and consider feedback and to adjust the proposed preliminary plat as needed. During the interim, city staff communicated with some of the affected tenants in order to meet the Commission's 60-day deferral time period and our own internal publication deadlines. Most of these communications were held at a higher level, at the city attorney's office level. And the outcome we've got for you to consider tonight is a Riverfront Addition that has been reduced in size and scope. I'll walk through the changes during this presentation tonight. We also did draft a short memo and exhibit that explains the changes that's in the agenda packet. And as you already know, but I'll state again, the major subdivision process is a 2-step application. This preliminary plat is considered for approval by the Planning Commission, and then a subsequent final plat would be reviewed and approved administratively by the Planning Director. So as a reminder, the previous iteration of this preliminary plat was for 3 blocks and 5 lots. They were located on both sides of the railroad right-of-way and on both sides of the 6th Street right-of-way. And it encompassed this City Hall structure, an adjacent city-owned parking lot, the former Riverfront Mall structure, Abe and Jake's, and then the Bowersock Mill facility as well. So following discussions with tenants, the Planning Commission, city staff, and the city's engineering consultant, the Riverfront Addition preliminary plat has been modified to include just one block and 2 lots. This modified Riverfront Addition plat would encumber the Spring Hill Suites Hotel, the vacant Riverfront office space, and then Abe and Jake's Event Center. The Bowersock major utilities use, City Hall, and the surface level parking lot have all been removed from the preliminary plat. This modification is the most efficient use of city staff time as well as the time of our engineering consultants, and it advances a portion of the overall platting goals that we have for this area down the track. It's still the city's goal to plat the remaining properties in order to establish cleanly platted lot lines and easily traceable legal descriptions, so that hasn't changed. That just would now occur at a later date with a separate platting action. And then it remains the case that there are no development applications submitted for any of these proposed lots at this time. So you've already seen this slide, but it's just a reminder that where we are right now has never been platted as platted blocks or lots, and it was referred to as the levy lands in the original town site plat. So tonight, as I said, the plat, or the proposed preliminary plat has been modified for just 1 block and 2 lots. The covered parking structure east of City Hall remains outside of this plat, and then you will now be considering just 1 variance tonight instead of the 3 that you reviewed 2 months ago. So in the interest of time, I'll defer to the original staff report and the memo for a deeper analysis of the review criteria, but I will run through them pretty quickly here. For proposed block 1, lots 1 and 2, it will still require a variance from a few sections related to frontage and access, so that's the same as 2 months ago. If approved, this criteria will be met, and I will address that variance again in a later slide. All proposed lots would conform to the minimum lot size standards. A variance had been required for this section, but is no longer required. All proposed lots would satisfy the subdivision design standards, and again, a variance from the right-of-way width requirement is also no longer required. And then no changes on the rest of them. This preliminary plat conforms with the comprehensive plan and the downtown Lawrence plan. This is existing development. As such, these newly platted lots, they conform to adopted water, wastewater, and drainage plans, and they've been reviewed by municipal services and operations staff. And then finally, as always, a subsequent final plat would need to be signed by the Douglas County Surveyor, and it must conform to the minimum standards for boundary surveys. So as you're familiar with this section, but a variance would be, so these are the standards that you'll need to consider when considering the variance request. So that's unnecessary hardship, harmony with the intended purpose of these regulations, and then protection of the public health, safety, and welfare. So like I said, we'll go into a little bit more detail about variance, the only remaining variance. So proposed block 1, lots 1 and 2, they're separated from the public right-of-way from Massachusetts Street by the change in elevation, and then from side streets by the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad right-of-way. So a variance from the frontage and access requirements of section 20-1109 and 20-1110 would permit the platting of the lots as proposed. So the green area is just kind of a rough visual of where that railroad right-of-way is and how it disconnects the proposed lots from the remaining public right-of-way. So as mentioned, the variance for the lot width for the City Hall property is no longer required, as is the variance for the right-of-way width for 6th Street east of Mass. That's also not required at this time. And then a quick reminder of our public notice standards, since we did talk about this last time. We did do a second round of neighbor notice to property owners within 200 feet with updated letters. And then, like I said, our city attorney's office kind of directed the communications with the affected tenants. So to wrap up, staff recommends approval. Well, first of all, let me back up. The order of operations is important. We'll want to do a vote on the variance first and then on the preliminary plat overall. Staff recommends approval of the one remaining variance from the above referenced sections, and then staff also recommends approval of the overall preliminary plat as presented tonight. I did speak to our MSO partners and then our engineering consultants. I'm not sure they're with us tonight. Both of them had previous commitments, so if they are, they're on Zoom, but I feel comfortable that we can answer most questions. Very good.
Luke. So with that, then I take that to mean that there's no applicant presentation, that that Rebecca's not going to be here,
That's
right? I just didn't want to overlook. All right, well, then we'll turn to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? See none in the room. Is there any on Zoom?
I am not seeing anyone online indicating they wish to speak.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll bring it back then to the commission, and yes.
So question for Luke. So Luke, so if we grant the variance and a developer in the future wants to purchase or use one of these properties, how will they get access to the frontage? Like how does that work? Will they need access? I mean,
There may be an access agreement across the railroad right-of-way.
Okay.
If there is, it's probably buried deep within the property records. And as Rebecca talked about at the meeting 2 months ago, part of PEC's charge is doing all those title searches and making note of those existing easements that are already in place. And so that's could be quite a task with a complicated piece of land like this. But it'll be their job to note any existing agreements and easements.
so if you're doing something, you got to go in eyes wide open, understanding all the, okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Jeff, did you have something?
I think Randy had a comment there.
Oh, great, Randy?
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. I would echo exactly what Luke said. Also, because there is no direct access, and would be probably an implied easement under the law to allow access to the right-of-way across either the right-of-way, the railroad right-of-way, and parking lot. So
Okay.
there would be access that would have to be implied so that the property could actually be used. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
So they wouldn't have to like enter into a separate agreement. It's sort of like by right they would have access, right?
Typically, yes, but the parties would probably work together to locate where that access would be and those types of things. But one would be impressed by law eventually if there was no type of agreement or something of that nature. The owner of that property would be able to get access. They might have to resort to the court.
Right.
But they would be able to get.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Randy, I have a question about the access road I hadn't thought about until you were just mentioning that. My understanding is the question was about if it were to be held by a new owner. So do you have to have access for like a transaction for the sale of this property? Would that affect, I mean, I'm not sure that it matters as it's city property and hopefully will stay city property, but I just wasn't sure if that affects the ability to put the land up for sale or for someone to purchase it.
At this point in time, there is an existing kind of easement that allows across the bridges. Now, if that were to go away and the parking garage were to go away, that might be a different question, but currently as it stands, there would not be a problem because they would just take the right that Riverfront currently has to use those access bridges.
Thank you. Any other questions or further discussion? Seeing none,
I'll make a motion
Wonderful.
for the variance. We'll start there, right, Jeff? I make a motion to approve the variance requested from sections 20-1109D1, 20-1110B, 20-1110C1 to allow 3 lots without frontage along a public street or road.
Is there a sec-
recommend approval and pass on to the city.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand.
Discussion, sorry.
Oh, sorry, further discussion? Fine.
Just a quick thing. So Jeff, just to close the circle, so if I want to use the property, do I have to come back to the city for any kind of permissions? In other words, like, is it just a matter of the owners working it out, or is the city somehow going to have to be involved in that process? I'm just wondering how cumbersome is it going to be if I just want to use these lots?
The lots would, oh, go ahead, Randy, sorry.
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. Currently, the owner of Riverfront has a lease with the city.
Okay.
That would continue to be in existence. The new owner, if someone purchased it that was not the city, and they would be subject to that lease. The city would be subject to the terms and conditions of that ground lease for the use of that property, and we would be subject to the same. They'd have the same rights that Riverfront.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to be left hanging out there.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah.
If I may have a point of order on that one there, I believe the motion said 3 lots and forwarding a recommendation to the city. The variance should be for the 2 lots and just approving the item. The variances are not forward for recommendations.
Okay. It does say
It does,
lots
yeah.
without frontage along a public street or road.
Yep, and I'm sorry, that was an error in updating the.
Fair enough.
This.
I do have a screenshot of your slide. Let me reread the.
We have a pending motion, so we should either make a friendly amendment or
I'm going to
withdraw.
make an amendment if Jeff is okay with that. Okay. I'm going to recommend approval of the variance from sections that I mentioned earlier of the subdivision regulations, removing the requirement that each lot have direct access to a public street or road for proposed block 1, lots 1 and 2. Is that better?
And if the second is
Is the
amenable to
second.
the amendment.
That's fine.
Are you amenable?
I am.
Amenable? My lord. Need some water.
All right. Any further discussion on the amended motion? All right, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Excellent. And we will move on to our third. Sorry.
I'm going to do the second part because I have the screenshot
My
pulled
bad.
up. No, you're great. You're great. I didn't want to interrupt you. I'll make a proposal to approve to send the major subdivision PP-24-1011 at Riverfront Addition to the city for approval.
Is that
Does that work?
It's a preliminary.
preliminary?
Yes.
It's a preliminary plat, so you would actually approve the preliminary plat.
Okay. The language is a little confusing.
Move to
So
approve. Yeah.
I move to approve the preliminary plat 24-1011 for Riverfront Addition based on the findings listed in the body of the staff report and subject to the conditions listed in the report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Jeff.
Our apologies. It's a bit of a convoluted item there.
Understood. No problem.
Yes. But Luke, you did a great job of updating us on it. Thank you. And so great, we'll turn the third item over to you too.
2 for 1.
Okay. Good evening again, Commissioners. Luke Mortensen, Planner with Planning and Development Services. As Chair Hayden again noted, the final public hearing item tonight is a request to rezone approximately 1.3 acres from the M3, that's the Mixed Corridor District, to the R4 Residential High Density District for an existing platted lot located at 515 McDonald Drive. So just to help you get your bearings, the subject property is an approximately 1.3 acre lot located in the northwest corner or the approximate northwest corner of the intersection of West 6th Street and McDonald Drive, or where they do pass over each other in the north central portion of the city. So here's some key points to think about as you consider this rezoning tonight. The request to rezone is the first step in establishing a two-building, 33-unit, multi-unit dwelling development. For Section 20-803 of the Land Development Code, that's our permitted principal use table. Multi-unit dwelling development, or multi-unit dwelling use is permitted in both the current mixed corridor and the proposed high-density residential district. However, there is an additional standard for the multi-dwelling unit in the mixed corridor district. So that's the code section highlighted in yellow. Multi-unit dwellings are only permitted when constructed as part of a mixed-use project where at least 50% of the gross floor area is developed with non-residential uses. So the residential and non-residential uses may be mixed horizontally, vertically, or within separate structures on the same lot. The applicant proposes to construct a multi-unit dwelling development without a non-residential component, which has resulted in this request to rezone to the residential high-density district. Like I said, this is the first step in the development process. 515 McDonald's is a platted lot. There would not be any additional platting actions required at this time. However, if rezoned to the residential high-density district, the applicant would need to obtain an approved major site plan, public improvement plans, and building permit prior to construction. And then finally, this property is located within Tier 1, and then of course that's Tier 1 is properties already within the city limits. So as you all know, the Planning Commission is charged with considering this proposed rezoning request against the Land Development Code's review and decision-making criteria and forwarding a recommendation on to the City Commission. Staff also reviewed this rezoning request against the same criteria. In the interest of time and brevity, I'll rely on and defer to the analysis located within the staff report, but like previously, I'll do a quick run-through of each item. So first is, how does this proposed rezoning conform with the comprehensive plan? Staff reviewed both the current mixed corridor district and the proposed high-density residential districts against the goals and objectives of Plan 2040 and concluded that, broadly speaking, maintaining the current mixed corridor district more closely aligns with chapters 3, 4, and 6 of the comprehensive plan. The individual goal and objectives are listed in the staff report. These are chapters addressing growth and development, neighborhoods and housing, and economic development, respectively. Second is a consideration of the adjacent property's zoning and land use. So the subject property is highlighted in teal there. It's entirely surrounded by the mixed corridor zoning district. This district was the successor of the previous code's CS, Commercial Strip District, which is why you'll see a lot of the mixed corridor kind of along West 6th Street, shown in red. The triangle of land that's framed by West 6th Street, Rockledge Road, and McDonald Drive has several existing land uses. That includes hotel, light equipment, and vehicle repair, another multi-unit dwelling development, and daycare center use. And then, of course, there are some vacant, undeveloped lots directly south of the subject property. So the third criteria addresses the character of the neighborhood. 515 McDonald is not located within any official neighborhood association, but it is a highly trafficked area with an existing array of both residential and non-residential land uses. Both McDonald Drive and West 6th Street are principal arterial streets. Rockledge Road is a collector street. There are a series of existing platted access drives and easements that permit access across several of the platted lots in this area. There's an exhibit of those located within the staff report. The subject property has had a base commercial zoning district since 1966. The original commercial district was called Neighborhood Shopping Center. That converted to subsequent commercial or now mixed-use districts in 2006 and 2025. So the fourth criteria discusses neighborhood plans. This property is not located within an area with an approved neighborhood small area or sector plan. And then the fifth criteria discusses potential or the suitability of the subject property for its permitted uses. So 515 McDonald is, as discussed, located between several principal arterial streets. This lends itself well to both higher density residential and high intensity non-residential uses. The current mixed corridor district is a highly permissive zoning district with a wide array of permitted residential and non-residential uses. The mixed corridor district does not have a residential density maximum. Instead, the requirement to have a portion of it be non-residential essentially regulates density, whereas the residential districts have a stated maximum. The applicant could construct the proposed 33 multi-unit dwelling units within the mixed corridor district so long as 50% of the project's gross floor area was comprised of non-residential uses. So we've discussed land use already. This was just the sister slide to the zoning. So next up, 515 McDonald Drive has been vacant since 2018. The previous hotel use existed between 1986 and 2018. It burned down and obtained demolition permits in 2018. Staff does not believe that an approved rezoning would detrimentally affect nearby properties. If approved, the proposed multi-unit dwelling development would be subject to major site plan review. Major site plans must be fully code compliant. The site planning process would review impactful features like residential density, lighting, off-street parking, and landscaping, among others. Since staff does not anticipate approval of the rezoning request to detrimentally affect nearby properties, denial of this request is unlikely to result in any direct benefit to the public health, safety, and welfare. Alternatively, staff does not anticipate any hardship upon the applicant if this request is denied. The applicant could still establish 33 multi-dwelling units so long as the mixed corridor district standards are met. Finally, it is staff's professional recommendation that this proposed rezoning does not advance the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan or the land development code. This is an infill opportunity to establish both residential and non-residential uses within an existing accessible environment that would not push either use type further out to the city's periphery or unincorporated Douglas County. Maintaining the existing mixed corridor district would advance a long-standing code standard that residential developments at nodes and along corridors develop with an even mix of residential and non-residential uses. This rezoning would also disrupt the existing general transition of uses and intensity that exists from north to south. The current mixed corridor district functions well as a buffer between West 6th Street and McDonald Drive and the lower density residential uses to the north. There's several exhibits of this located within the staff report. Here's one correction that I wanted to make note of as I was putting my notes together. There are a few sections of the code that reference a base, this property having a base commercial district since its annexation into the city in 1959. That is not correct. It did have a residential, a low-density residential zoning designation from 1959 until 1966. It became commercial in 1966. So we'll get that corrected when this goes up to the City Commission. But I wanted to make sure that that was clear. So to wrap up, the formal staff recommendation is to the Planning Commission will be to forward this rezoning request to the City Commission with a recommendation for denial based on the findings presented in the staff report. I imagine we'll have some good discussion on this tonight, and then our applicant is here as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Luke. And at this time, does the applicant want to speak to the commission?
Good evening. My name is Lance Adams. I'm with Adams Architects. We're a small local firm here in town. I want to thank you for the time to speak to you. I know there was a 3-minute discussion. Does that apply to me as well?
You actually have 10 minutes as the applicant to speak to us, yes.
Perfect. So 515 McDonald Drive, a couple things to look at. If everybody would look at page 16 in their staff report, it should be an image of the old hotel that was there, taken off of Google Earth in 2017. Okay, thank you. As we look at this site, the reason, and nothing has been applied for this site since the hotel burnt down. Nobody's come forward and said, hey, I've got a great idea for a piece of commercial property to go into this area. Why is that? Why do we look at that and go, well, why hasn't this site developed? Well, the site's got several issues. It has 35 feet of rise across it. So as McDonald Drive initially touches the bottom corner or the north corner of the property, the site rises 35 feet. The road does not. McDonald Drive stays flat through that area and then rises up after going under the overpass. So looking at that page 16, you start seeing what is the visibility for my commercial project to be located on that lot. Not much at all. So how as a commercial develop, do I deal with that? Well, signage, right? Signage is probably critical to get people to come to my commercial piece of property. Well, as we know, pole signs aren't allowed anymore, have been not allowed for a long time. So that kind of goes away. So you can see that even a hotel that's been in place since 1986, I believe, you can see that they've even gone to a temporary sign out in the right of way, if you look at the image on page 16. Even after being there that many years. So signage is critical for that site, and that's part of the issue with it. For a typical design for a commercial structure, you'd be looking at a single-story application for that, and there is not enough flat land in that piece of property to accommodate a single-story commercial property in there. We talked about visibility on it. Ease of access. That piece of property is accessed off of a private road off of McDonald Drive. That is a shared private road that goes up to the properties that are to the south that are currently owned by Burt Nash. Those two vacant lots are a Burt Nash project or pieces of property. With that access off the private road, it just makes it more difficult for a commercial building to go into it as well. As we look at it even more, surprises that came up to us as we looked at how do we use the site. Back in 1986, 85, a private sewer was put in to the piece of property. So part of the public works plans, we have to put in a public sewer off of Rockledge up to this piece of property. And then also to help out as well, we have to increase the size of the water service to this piece of property as well. Those are both items that would come in commercial, residential, or not. I've found it interesting on the water line upsize. If we look at the planning report for the apartments that went in next door at 512 Rockledge, the ones that are right next door, the fire department had concerns about water service at that time. And they were given the opportunity to either increase the water line feed or change the construction type of the buildings, which they chose to do the construction type to do 1 hour rated buildings. So there's already been some adaptation for those apartments to come into that area. Now, I'd like for you to look at, I had given a packet, into your packet, just a 6th Street view. And if everybody has that or not, I want to kind of look at the patterning of 6th Street. So that should be, and hopefully, Luke, you got that added?
Yeah, it should be page 42 of 42 of this specific agenda item report.
So something like this. Okay. So if we step back and, you know, this is newer zoning, it's all based off of our we're new code in April, and zoning's done kind of a broad brush of how things are zoned, how they should be zoned. As we looked at, we start seeing a pattern on 6th Street. You see that the darker red color, that's your M3 zoning running up and down 6th Street. But directly behind that, you see a dark gold color. And what is that? That's an R4. So that's an R4. So what we're looking at is a language and a pattern all through this part of 6th Street that already exists. And you're like, well, Lance, what's this purple thing? Well, that's a planned district, and that is apartments as well. So, and then as you look at it closer, as you look into it closer, and I have a handout for this, Luke, if you could do that for me. I just need one. Should be more than enough. So if we really look at this closer and start understanding a little bit of the history of what's happened currently, which probably most of you were involved in, late April for a project known as The Bluffs, which is part of the old Sally Mae, for those people who have been in town. Mm-hmm. That piece of property was actually rezoned to an R3. That was supported by staff to rezone an M2 to an R3. So as we look at that, we start seeing residential creeping into 6th Street and up against 6th Street. And in fact, if we really look at the document you just got, you start seeing how the real language of how all the other lots are drawn and to what edge that their zoning goes to. So zoning, as you look at these, your zoning goes to the middle of the street, right? But not for some reason in this case where Iowa, McDonald Drive, and all that comes together. The zoning is going way across and out. And I think part of that is just really looking at, you know, an M3 corridor. Well, we have an M3 corridor in Lawrence. It goes through there. How do we broad brush this through this area? Well, we ignore all the other rules that we've set for showing zoning on this map. So what I've shown you is that High Point, I think everybody knows High Point as an apartment, per this map, it doesn't touch 6th Street. But in reality, it does. That zoning goes all the way to the midpoint of 6th Street. So the R3 zoning up at the Bluffs, that touches 6th Street. So the M2 of the lower section of the Bluffs, that touches 6th Street and then also to the midpoint of McDonald Drive. If we're being fair and if we're looking at the language and the patterns that are created. And then of course you've got some residential, some R1 behind that is also flowing over to McDonald that is indicated as an M3. So this M3, where this little piece of property is really not as big as indicated by just looking at the zoning map. And I just want to make sure that as we look at it, we are looking at it for how it truly is and how the rest of Lawrence is really shown in zoning. So now that we've looked at that and we've thought about it, what do we have? We have an island. We have a little island of M3 that has been zoned in there. And so then we ask ourselves, what is in that island? And I think Luke pointed it out. He's got automotive repair. He's got a hotel. We have currently 3 vacant lots. You have some apartments and you have a daycare. Now, I looked at those and I said, well, we're M3 now. We're not CS5 or whatever the apartments went into back in the day when you were allowed to put apartments into that zoning. What are the issues? If I came in with one of those projects, what would be the issue? Well, automotive repair, M3 requires, and just as a broad scope, M3 requires 80% of your primary property line to be a building, a minimum 3-foot tall wall, or landscaping not associated with your parking lot.
I'm afraid your time has run. We've hit our 10 minutes.
Okay.
But the commission may have questions for you, and at that point in time, we will ask you to come back up and answer questions.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this matter? There's no one in the room. Is there anyone online?
I am not seeing anyone use the raise hand function or indicate that they wish to speak.
Okay, great, thank you. So with that, I will bring it back to the commission for discussion or questions. Does anyone like to get started?
I'll go first if that's okay. So, we're always talking about needing more housing in our city, in our county. And it seems we have an opportunity here to increase the number of houses. I understand that it's not, we're losing commercial by doing, if the developer got what he wanted. But Luke, so if we were to entertain not denying it, would there be any concerns about the actual project itself, besides the fact that the zoning, besides zoning, is there any concerns? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if we were to say we want to approve this, would there be any concerns that you would have from planning that this wouldn't satisfy, whether it's the number of units or the access points for residents? Are there any general concerns? Have you looked at it from that angle if we were to approve it? Or, you know what I mean? Or was it just
I think I understand. At this point, it's too early to say, but what we would address those concerns during the site planning stage. So we would check for density. We now have design. We have design standards for multi-unit dwelling structures, so we would review for those during the site planning stage. So it's probably too early to say if I have any concerns, but if rezoned, the use would be permitted, and then the rest would be administrative review, basically.
Okay.
And I do want to make one clarification. The non-residential requirement for the M3, the mixed corridor district, it's just that it's non-residential, so it doesn't have to be commercial. Could be office, could be medical, it doesn't have to be commercial.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think it's important for us to remember that when it comes to rezoning, our goal is to look at what the overall result of that could be, regardless if this project were to go through or not go through. If we rezone it, it is that zone. So anything that fits inside of that category could go there. That is just me clarifying. I actually do believe that this property, I drive by this all the time. I live very close to it. After it burned down, I anticipated some sort of project going back in, but here we are, 7 years later, and this is the first proposal I believe, that has been sent to the city for any sort of approval. And I do agree with Commissioner Duvar that it is our goal to try and look at ways to increase housing. And this lot is very awkward to enter if you've ever tried to drive up into it. So I find it strange that this would be a really good place for a mixed use, but that's my opinion at this moment.
I agree with the two prior comments that it seems to me that this is a good thing. But then also in the report, it specifically mentioned that this block of land is an island inside of a sea of other M3. And I have a hard time picturing it that, because if you look at it, everything to the west, it's either easement, right-of-way, or roads, not something that's ever going to get developed anyway. So if you take out those out of the picture, we're now on the edge. We're not an island, and it fits a lot better on the edge. So I'm leaning towards supporting this, because we do need the housing, and it's not the easiest place to build, and it's sat there for a long time.
Other questions or discussion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go.
Right.
I love it.
I'd like to move that we recommend approval of,
Closer to the microphone, please.
oh, okay. I'd like to recommend that I'd like to move that we recommend approval of this zoning category to R4, specifically because I think it does conform with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a balancing of many of our interests, and one of the ones that I think sticks out to me as being overriding is 4.2, which says, modify existing specific land use plans to accommodate higher future land use densities and locations. And I think that's exactly what this is doing. I think that there certainly is an awful lot of very well-defined reason to use M3 in the report, and I appreciate that. But I think on balance, the comprehensive plan goes towards supporting increased density. And the zoning, as people have already discussed, really it's next to other apartment zoning, other R4. It's not just in the center of an M3, as Commissioner Kelso just pointed out. It's on the edge. And I would say that the character of the neighborhood is as much residential as anything else. There's nothing really strongly recommending mixed uses in there. I drove up that driveway. I thought I was going to lose the bottom of my car going up it. And I can't imagine going there for any non-residential reasons. There is no plan that covers this particular spot. And although the uses to which it has been restricted may be reasonable, there isn't anybody who wants to develop here. So I think zoning for something that we don't have anybody proposing a use for doesn't make any sense to me. It's been vacant since 2018, and as the staff report points out, the rezoning to R4 would not have any bad effect on any of the neighboring property, and it would not have any effect on the public interest. So I think that the applicant would be harmed if the zoning were denied. And for those reasons, I would like to move that we recommend approval of the R4 zoning.
Would you like to make a formal motion?
I did.
Do you want all of that language in your motion?
I would like, yes, I would.
Okay. Do we get?
But I'd ask Mr. Quick if that's a problem. I thought we...
A little unorthodox of a motion, but I think we've got the essence of it. It was a motion to approve based upon the language that Commissioner Eldridge laid out as part of her finding, if I would get to that.
Thank you, Mr. Crick.
There's a pending motion. Is there a second?
I will second.
All right, motion and second. So is there any discussion?
Yes, so in the course of discussion, are we able to put questions to staff, or is this just offering our own perspective again?
Generally, we ask staff questions, even though there's a pending motion. So I think you can, it's not that much more different than the discussion we had previously. It's just that now it's framed with a motion.
Okay, so a question for staff. I guess I'd preface it with my own comments here. In reviewing the staff report and then again in reviewing or taking in your presentation this evening, I guess I was ultimately surprised by the finding that, or the recommendation that this should be rejected. And I think partly that's because so much of the report seemed to align with, it seemed to be leading towards a recommendation for approval. And so, at least to me, it wasn't forcefully clear what were the reasons for recommending rejection. I think I can articulate them, but before we move forward with this discussion, I'd like to put it back to you. Can you just hammer home the 2 or 3 main points as to why you all landed at this particular recommendation?
Yeah, that's the tricky thing about our review and decision-making criteria, the golden factors, is that they're not always, all 8 met perfectly and leads to discussions like this. I'll just say that the kind of the main driving factor for me was the comprehensive plan's repeated discussion of mixed use and infill development on existing sites. And the fact that 33 dwelling units could be placed here, it just has this additional non-residential standard. So we're not talking about a use that was not permitted before that is now permitted. It's just the same use is still permitted with one less restriction, or one less standard.
Very good. I appreciate that. And so I guess in considering this motion and the comments here tonight, I appreciate that there is a continued focus on increasing housing opportunities within our community. But I don't think that this particular proposal does that, in that it doesn't change the ability to develop this particular lot for a residential purpose, doesn't increase the density for which this lot can be used for a residential purpose. So if we're to explore this on another basis, I'd welcome other comments and perspectives on that. But this thought that we need to increase housing, let's approve this, that doesn't necessarily do it for me. So I'm trying to keep an open mind. If there are other perspectives as to why this makes sense, I'm all ears.
So the way I look at it, and I'm not saying I'm right, I'm usually not, but if we look at the way that this would have been rezoned from previous use, if we look at the other building or the property usages that are there right now, none of those would be able to truly exist in the way they are now if they were under the current M3. Like if they get burned down, like the hotel, you couldn't rebuild the automotive shop as it lies right now, which I think is an unfortunate we had to do a blanket rezone based off of what it was before and what that means now. There was a path this way to get to the new code, but I don't know that the direct path was the perfect resolution. It is just what we had to do because they had to rezone the whole city, right, after the code went into effect. I believe personally that the M3 mixed corridor use as it lies here within this particular triangle of properties is not properly zoned just purely based off of what already exists there right now. And that's why I believe even if it's just this little segment that's being rezoned to R4, we are still in line with every other piece of developed property that exists at this time. Now, that's just my opinion on how I see that area because I literally drive by it almost every day.
I think for me, part of what I see, I actually agree with the staff report, and I agree with your reasoning that you've laid out. And as far as the pending motion, I probably wouldn't support it only because I don't agree with all of the findings that are listed in it. But I do struggle with this project a little bit because I'm not sure that the mixed use works up here on this hill. Like that's for me, it's just a practicality of mixed use because, I mean, how many times have I driven past this hill and I knew what was on the other side, but I couldn't see what was on the other side, And so I think that's where how I'm thinking about this application. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Day job coming in. Commissioner Baroto, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, absolutely. From my point of view, I think the aerial map of this location doesn't really show the true picture of this property. And like other commissioners mentioned before, for mixed use or any commercial property that would love to put a business there, it will be extremely difficult for that owner to promote the business or at least get some visibility. On that note, the denial is something that I don't agree with. And another reason of it is the need of housing is extremely high. And to put a number on it, as of last Monday in the city of Lawrence, there were less than 100 single-family homes available for purchase. And the average listing prices was $415,000 as of last Monday. So I think that the need is critical, and additional housing is definitely needed. And if this location meets all those requirements, I support the motion done by Commissioner Eldridge.
Any other comments, discussion, questions?
So, additional commentary. So I appreciate the additional discussion and perspective this evening. From my perspective, this is a close call. I don't have any issue with intensive residential use of this lot. That seems to fit with the overall character of the surrounding area, especially when we take a look at the map as the applicant suggested and cut out some of those common areas and thoroughfares. I guess generally I intend to vote against the or to vote against the motion that's before us. Generally, I'm aligned with the staff's findings here, and I'm deferential to their findings on this point. I don't always land on the same side as staff. Here, I'm giving it more deference in part because there isn't a lot of other inputs. Unlike a lot of other zoning applications that we get, there is no public comment, there's no public concern as to what this might do. It's not really changing the nature of what's capable of being done there. So just looking at one perspective from the applicant, one perspective from staff, and then our own wise perspectives here. I'm going to land slightly on the side of staff, vote against Commissioner Eldridge's motion, but don't have any issues with this going forward and hopefully being developed in some form that fits the area and serves the community.
Yeah, and it would still need to go through like a rigorous site planning process. So, I mean,
Step one.
this would be step one. Yeah.
And I would just say I'm going to vote against the motion for the reasons that I set out before, but I think this project, for the reasons I said, is probably good in this space. So I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand.
Aye.
Any against? All right, motion passes. Do you have the language and everything that you need to pass on appropriately for the next steps?
We do. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then our fourth item this evening has been deferred. So we will move on to any miscellaneous new or old business.
Question of the chair, and apologies if I missed this. It could be that you're just incredibly efficient. Did we
No, we did not.
do minutes?
We did not.
Did not.
Okay. And that wasn't a miss on our part. I don't believe they're included within the packet. Is that?
They're not.
That's
We didn't
correct.
have. Okay. Yeah, so is it because there was a Monday? We didn't have a Monday meeting.
No, it's because the software was against us on that item.
I wasn't sure if we had to wait till next month, like a Monday meeting or what.
No. The technical answer is there's a gremlin in the system and it's finding us, and therefore we didn't get them. So we'll get them to you next time.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, and thank you very much, because as soon as you looked at me, I was like, oh no. And I'm like scrambling through everything to see if I'd missed it. So thank you very much. So with that, is there any other miscellaneous or new business? All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. We're adjourned.
Nice.
Thank you.
Good job.